Hi everyone, welcome to today's live training. It's Steve. I'll be running through our new enhancements today. Thanks for taking the time to join me. So we've got some really useful updates to cover, some big ones, some small ones, but all designed to make your day and tasks a little smoother. I'll walk you through each feature and show you how it works and talk about where it might save you time or clicks. So feel free to pop any questions into the chat as we go along. But of course, we can have a question and answer session at the end. So I'm sharing screen. So let's kick things off by heading over to the purchase order lookup. So the first feature I'm going to show you is batch complete. So we've now got a button on the purchase order lookup. This is particularly useful sort of end of day if you've saved up some stock orders from various vendors. You can now multi-select from here and you can use the complete button. So instead of clicking into each purchase order one by one, you can select a bunch and complete them all in one go. So you just use the button on here and then that will go through and complete whatever you've selected. Yeah. Just be aware that there can be issues whereby perhaps one of them hasn't been completed because, for example, you've not got a zip code set up or something like that. But that's a great new feature. Even better, there's now an option in the supplier setup to email the purchase order. So obviously for quite a few your main vendors, we've got EDI, but for some, for example, HON, you might not have that. So that means that you can go into those particular companies. Let's just open one of those up. Now, provided that you've set on the company record, email the purchase order on completion. So if I go into here. So what this means effectively that either from the requirements list, you can build and automatically complete a non-EDI purchase order, or you can do it from the lookup here. And provided you've got this email the purchase order, then they will go automatically. A little bit like your sales invoices will be automatically sent out. So they'll get queued up and get sent out. So they just save you another job. And then finally, while we're in purchase orders, we've added a further report in there which shows with images. That was a request that came in for, particularly when you're using, you want to be specific about the items. Probably not relevant for SBR. Well, not relevant for SBR, but if you've got parts or particular items that you want to show the detail of to the vendor. Okay, so I'm going to move across to a great new feature that we've put in for order sources and routes. So we put this in because for most orders, they're business supplies, and you've got a certain default per location. But what we can now do is, if I come across to the admin, we can set up. Let's just go into the admin here. So if I go into routes down here, and for example, we go into one of these routes here, furniture, you can see now we've got extra options in here, and we can map the order source into the route. And also we've got we've added in the delivery option. So in this case, instead of just using the default for that customer on that particular address, if you happen to change it to 2020 furniture, the examples I've used here, it could be furniture from workplace or whatever, then they automatically change into a different route. And then at that point, it could be that those, instead of being automatically ignoring back orders and sending the stuff out, then you require all the items. So just to really show you that and how that works, once you've set that up, what that means, if I come into a sales order, So in the sales order here, you've got an order source, and in here we can see we've got no van rows and single dispatch, ignore back orders. If I change this, and if you're importing certain, this will automatically be set. For example, if I change this to 2020 furniture, you can see straight away your route and your delivery options change. So even though the options on the default location might be the route, in this case north, then that's automatically going to be different with a different delivery option. So that's really useful for projects, which leads me nicely into the next set of improvements. We've done a lot more on projects, and these are getting really useful and more powerful now. So you can now create a project directly from the company record. That means no more hopping back and forth. It's all linked up nicely. So if I go into the company record, and we have a look in the main tab here, you've got an area here where projects can be set up. All you need as a default is a reference and the project name, but obviously you can put a full description. We'll have full reporting on this. That's linked to the company name. And you can see here, as default, it goes in as active. Once everything is shipped and done away, it will automatically move to inactive, but you can bring it back and add future ones. So once you've got a project set up, we can now filter. So projects can now be used almost everywhere: quotes, sales, dispatches, POs, invoices, you name it. This is a big help if you manage long-running projects and multi-phase projects. So what we mean by that is, if I go into a sales order, here you're putting the item into a project. So this now you can have multiple sales orders in the same project, and then from the lookup you've got a filter obviously in here, but pretty much every lookup has got a project lookup in here, and they'll see all your active projects. But the important thing now is that you've got similar things. So when it comes to buying, in your requirements lookup, it'll help you purchase better for your projects. So again, in here, you can set all the items that you've got to purchase for a given project from here. But the important things really, once you've got projects set up, and you saw before from order source that we could manage the order source and say, oh, you require back orders. So when it comes into movements, when you want to manage dispatching your projects, we go into dispatch here. We've added into the available items, we've added features here to show you more information. You can now go full screen here, and you see you've got project and project status here. So you can see all those different projects and where they're up to and the status of them, and that will help you. You can also select them from here. So if you're just looking at dispatching one project and stuff, that's really useful feature. And similarly in invoicing, it was quite difficult to keep track of your invoicing for projects. So we move across to invoicing here and look at available lines. We've done something very similar, really. You can now go full screen, so it gives you more space. And in here, you can include projects and or exclude projects. And if you've got a profile that actually has got some projects in, you can see the project here, and that one's got 5 lines. The bottom option is probably useful when you're talking about projects, because it shows every single line that's on a sales order. So I'll just come to the top there so we can see them. So that will show you all your projects and how many lines you've got in each of them, and this will show you the minimum project status in here as well, which is useful. Don't forget, you can build an invoice and then add lines from the invoice directly. So for example, if you built a line for first choice alarms, you could then put just 5 lines onto that if you wanted. So this is great one. This is great one for managing the projects and getting the goods out on time or at the right time. So moving on to the next one, a great one for the sales team, and this was by request from a couple of users. The commissions report. So what we've added to the commissions report, before we had two types, margin and bands and set bands. So we've improved the margins now. So if I move across into the administration and we look at users. So when you use the margin band before, it was if I click in here, we've got a new button called margin commission, and this is per salesperson. So before, when it was margin, if you made 15% margin, the margin was calculated at 15%. But now, when you're using margin commission, you can say up to 10%, they get 2% margin, up to 20%, 5% margin, up to 30%, etc. Yeah, and we've got a catch-all for up to 999, and also as default, you've got the maximum margin, which is usually set at 50, but you can increase that and add the extra band in there. So so this, why does this matter? Well, this that you build more motivational and fair commission models, and we got that no more one size fits all. So that's proved really popular, and that's actually already being used. Another quite big improvement, I think you'll appreciate, certainly your buyers will appreciate, if I come into purchase orders. Okay, so I'm going to go into examples, just so we've just got lots of lines on that we can show. So previously, when you were in a purchase order that had been gone past completed, have I put the wrong number in there? Sorry, 348. You've got too many numbers. Okay, so if we go into a purchase order, you might have a lot of lines, and for some example, for some reason you want to buy it from a different vendor. Previously, it was after it had been sent, it was quite difficult to undo the lines, because if you click in here and then click delete, before it would just show you one line at a time, but now it'll show you all the lines. But more than that, it shows it by line breakdown. So one line might be 2 required for sale and 1 required for stock. So this allows you to see all the information, and you can delete them all at once, or you could just delete some of them. And so you can see all the information in here that you need to make the right decision. If you've got permission, it'll also remove it from a dispatch note, but that's a permission-driven thing that you have to set. But if I just went into here and selected the lines, it would delete all those lines. Well, it would do if it didn't have it locked. So yeah, I think you'll find that your purchasing team will find that really useful. Yeah. So moving on to sales orders now. Ever tried adding a line to a sales order and got blocked because everything's already been delivered? Well, we've improved that further now, so that when you're in a sales order, you can now add lines even beyond that status. So if I go into 29114, so if I have a look at the status in here, so you can see we've got some lines that are invoiced even, and so previously, if everything once everything had been delivered, you couldn't delete any. You couldn't add any more lines. So this makes it much more flexible now. So you can see here. So really at any status now, right up to fully invoiced every line, you will be able to change that. So we're just going to put one in 04001. So a bit like on POs, you can add into a completed PO, but you could add to completed items before, but this takes it a bit further. Another nice feature we've added in is substituting. So previously, you could only substitute items after an order had been authorized in the buying list, but now we've made the alternatives available even after. So you see down here, you've now got all the alternatives, and you can now, so from the sales order as well as from the buying list, you can go in and swap to an alternative. So just one thing you've got to be aware of here, because it's after completed, it doesn't change the selling price. So when you change that alternative, you'll see your margin, you'll see the selling price, which is obviously the customer might have had an acknowledgement of this already, and you might, but you can change that selling price if you want to manually. So that's all I've got on sales orders really. So EDC job scheduling. We've added into the EDC, so again, I'll come into administration. When we go into the EDC, one of the frustrations is if you've got tight time limits for getting your last orders of the day off and other jobs kick in at that time, we've added 3 periods a day so that you can now have, instead of just one period, you can now stop and start between different periods. And we've got a further enhancement coming into here so that we're going to update this control to allow just 5 minutes, which should make this customer release as well. That's been worked on. So, for example, you should be able to stop it at stop your financials, for example, at 15 minutes to 5, and then restart it at 10 past 5, for example, and similarly on some of the other jobs. So I think that you'll find that a very useful feature. Not everybody uses service management, but it is useful to know that Prima does have service management features built in. So for example, we've got contracts. Now contracts are not just used for machines. Quite a lot of our dealers use them for water or shredding or all sorts of other contract things. But just for those who do use machines, we've added in a feature for editing the history. Previously, we got quite a lot of support calls where for some reason an initial reading and put in wrong or something like that, but you can now go into the history of your meter readings, counter readings, and simply update. You can actually do any of these in the range. That also helps give a proper record on the sales invoice. For SPR dealers, and I'm sure that we're working on something similar with Ascendant, but we've now got the feature for sending your email lists to SPR so that they can use your email list in the CRM. So we've got a couple of customers using that now. Previously it was called CA1, but it's I think SPR have renamed it SPR CRM. So if you are going to use that feature, you will need to contact support. But effectively in the admin, we've added a feature. Again, I'll just jump into the admin. In the automation, we've got something called CRM send. So we're piggybacking on the Prima CRM send, and we've just added in effectively the SPR. But as I say, contact support, and because we have to whitelist your IP address on your EDC machine, and we also have to set up a public key. So if you contact support, we'll do that, and then that's really hands-free. It will just send a schedule daily or every couple of days, whatever you've set up, and it won't send all your emails every day. It will just send any emails that have changed. So we've added a feature in there. If an email's changed, we keep a record of that separately, and so only the new ones will be added or ones that are modified. So that would be a great new feature for those using SPR CRM. Okay, so just moving on to external orders. So We've got a lot of customers now using the external orders. I did sort of touch on that before. So what I mean by that is, at the moment, GES 2020, CET, we've even got Steelcase that's now been added in McPherson, it's called. So we go into sales orders, have a look at one of these. So when you're importing orders, we've now got the option to go a little bit further on the classification. So as default before, if it was, you can go into the admin, and if the order source, for example, was 2020 furniture or 2020 G or 2020 CET, whatever it was called, you can now, so everything that was furniture would go into that one nominal. But now what you can do is you can go into the admin, set up a new nominal in the normal way. So you could come into here. In here, we've got nominals. In this case, I've set up one called home furniture. So it might be that when you're doing these projects, you want to closely map, measure what's going through on home furniture, for example. It doesn't have to be this. This is just an example. Once that's been set, it can be used then to automatically map. And so when you import your order, what will happen is the other lines will go into the standard, whatever's set for that particular. So we go into here, whatever's set for that particular order source, in this case, furniture and workplace. But when we come to a online, it knows who the vendor is, and it can then update to a different nominal. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, in fact, it doesn't have to be per vendor, but that's just showing an example where now, instead of having all your items on one nominal, we can break it down to several depending on your setup. So when you're importing orders, the system will check the supplier, find the right nominal, apply it automatically to the templated item, and you'll have the right classification. Super useful for reporting and financial consistency. And I've rattled through them a little bit. So please feel free to ask any questions. And as usual, we'll open up for questions and I'll unmute. But yes, we will be sending a YouTube recording and release notes after the session.